get right. Let's get right. Let's get right. Let's get right. Let's get right. You already know what it is, man. It's your boy Dealatofficial, and this is No Filters. Always appreciate you hitting that like button for me, subscribing to the channel so you don't miss an episode, and sharing this with the world. And of course, family, when you come in, get comfortable. Get you something to eat, get you something to drink, get you something to smoke if that's what you do. Cause you see the title, fam. Woo! Let's get into this here.
President Trump accused 6 Democratic lawmakers of seditious behavior punishable by death. Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No. Let's be clear about what the president is responding to, because many in this room want to talk about the president's response, but not what brought the president to responding in this way. You have sitting members of the United States Congress who conspired together to orchestrate a video message to members of the United States military, to active duty service members, to members of the national security apparatus, encouraging them to defy the president's lawful orders. The sanctity of our military rests on the chain of command. And if that chain of command is broken, it can lead to people getting killed. It can lead to chaos. And that's what these members of Congress who swore an oath to abide by the Constitution are essentially encouraging. We have 1.3 active duty service members in this country. And if they hear this radical message from sitting members of Congress, that could inspire chaos, and it could incite violence, and it certainly could disrupt the chain of command. These 3 members of Congress, I will also add, knew exactly what they were doing. You look at Alyssa Slotkin, she's a former member of the CIA. Mark Kelly was a captain in the US Navy. Maggie Goodlander was a naval officer, and notably, she is also the wife of Joe Biden's national security former advisor, Jake Sullivan. And so these members knew what they were doing. They were leading into their credentials as former members of our military, as veterans, as former members of the national security apparatus to signal to people serving under this commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, that you can defy him and you can betray your oath of office. That is a very, very dangerous message, and it perhaps is punishable by law. I'm not a lawyer. I'll leave that to the Department of Justice and the Department of War to decide.
But the president has frequently, but Caroline, can I just follow up? The president and the vice president, for that matter, have accused the other side of encouraging political violence. Isn't that exactly what the president is doing when he says that members of Congress should be killed?
Why aren't you talking about what these members of Congress are doing to encourage and incite violence? They are literally saying to 1.3 million active duty service members not to defy the chain of command, not to follow lawful orders. Every single
refuse an illegal order, which
the president has given illegal orders, which he has not. Every single order that is given to this United States military by this commander-in-chief and through this chain of command, through the Secretary of War, is lawful. And the courts have proven that. This administration has an unparalleled record at the Supreme Court because we are following the laws. We don't defy court orders. We do things by the books. And to suggest and encourage that active duty service members defy the chain of command is a very dangerous thing for sitting members of Congress to do. And they should be held accountable. And that's what the president wants to see.
You already know what it is. Your boy Dealatofficial.
Shot by.
Hit that like button right now. Double tap that screen. Subscribe. It's really real. You see the title.
Woo! Caroline, this morning.
Do you need $300, $500, or even $1,000 fast? We fix money that.
And his cult in Fox News. And this man Kanks is calling for Democrats to be executed. This is the man that is so worried about rhetoric on the left and the liberal, all the crap that they do. He is sitting calling for death of sitting congresspeople. Seditious behavior punishable by death. That's what he posted on his live social. And this is in response to Democratic Congresspeople coming out and saying military officers do not have, or military service members do not have to comply with illegally given orders. For me, the response would be, we're not giving illegal orders, but that's not what we're doing. And then he just goes on, he reposts that people should be hanged. And then he says, this is really bad and dangerous for our country. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors locks him up. President DJT. This is in response. And then he says, he reposts, hang them, George Washington would. So my question is, are the Republicans going to respond, oh, he's joking, he's so funny? Or are they going to say, I haven't heard about this, but this is why people in this country are experiencing political violence. The president of the United States throws around death threats instead of just saying, we're not giving illegal orders. We know he lies all the time. So why doesn't he just go say that? But no, he has to call for death. I'm mind blown by this.
He's always done this kind of shit. I mean, we all act like it's new. He's always done this. He's spoken about and retweeted violence against his opponents, against Joe Biden.
Meet the team at Crystal Heating and Cooling. 60 years of keeping your home safe and comfortable through any...
Donald Trump's White House has never been in a greater state of collapse or chaos, and oh boy does that bring a smile to my face, because tonight, by signing the bill to release the Epstein files, Donald Trump has sealed his own fate. He will pretend that he is all for transparency and that this was his idea from the beginning. But we know that is not the case. The public sentiment has overwhelmingly told Donald Trump that we know he is responsible for the cover-up that has happened and that will continue to happen. And everyone in his administration is complicit, including Stephen Miller, who went silent today, unable to speak when caught in the cover-up after the signing of the Epstein release. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, the Epstein files are not officially released. Donald Trump will continue to put roadblocks in place, and that is why, before we get to Stephen Miller, I want to start with what Robert Garcia has had to say about exactly that.
In the law that was passed in the Connor and Massie bill, there is a provision in there that essentially speaks to that the Department of Justice is able to possibly withhold some materials if there is an ongoing federal investigation. This has been discussed at length, and so folks are worried, is Pam Bondi, is Donald Trump, are they launching an investigation, particularly this one against Democrats, to use it as a way to stop the release of the files and of this bill? And that is a critical concern. What has not been discussed in the last few days, and we've been focused on this bill, I want to remind the Attorney General and the public that our subpoena does not have that language. And so if the Attorney General wants to use her sham investigation in the Southern District of New York to withhold evidence and documents on the bill that the president will hopefully just about to sign, she can't do the same for our subpoena. She is still legally obligated, regardless of any investigation, to produce every single document, photo, video, or material that she has in the possession of the DOJ to the Oversight Committee. That's something that we have not talked about a lot in the last few days because our focus is on this bill. But you can believe that in the next few days and weeks ahead, we're going to remind the DOJ that her investigation she might try to use to stop the effort in the full House, she can't use that to stop the effort we have in the Oversight Committee.
Donald Trump is going to put every roadblock in place possible. I will continue to say this, but now more than ever, we have to be focused in talking about Jeffrey Epstein. And as I've said all along, I do believe that what's not in these files might be as damaging, if not more so, than what is in the files. And what I mean by that is we need to continue to subpoena the Epstein estate. There needs to be more interviews. All of the documents that the Treasury has, we need to follow the money. We need to be looking into it all. And Pam Bondi is going to do her best, certainly over the next 30 days, but for the rest of this administration, honestly, up until the midterms when Democrats really drop the hammer on this whole operation, they're going to be panicking. They are going to be scrambling, and they are going to want to deflect our attention. Why do you think Donald Trump continues to say that he told Republicans to release the Epstein files? Why is that? Because he wants you to believe that he was the one doing it, and the Epstein files are released. And you haven't seen anything, so why even care? It's because they are going to block it all. But there's something that they can't block, and it's other people continuing to talk, which is what Epstein's brother did tonight before we get into Stephen Miller.
No, not whatsoever. Jeff and Donald were very good friends through the 90s, and I don't know exactly when it ended, maybe 2004 or something, but they were really good friends. They used to fly in each other's planes. But I said that they say Donald was on Jeff's plane like 7 times. But I question, have they checked Donald's flight logs from those days?
This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say what is outside the purview of the Epstein files right now. Of course, those flight logs were released and they were redacted. And funny enough, Donald Trump redacted his own name from the Epstein flight logs, but he didn't redact his daughter's name. So it said Ivanka Trump. It didn't say Donald's name. But those files are a perfect example of the type of fake slop that Donald Trump and Pam Bondi are going to push. A bunch of redacted files, a bunch of files that we can't trust. But what we can trust is what continues to come from the Epstein estate, what Democrats have been able to subpoena and have been able to release. It is important that we continue to get those documents as we push for maximum transparency and make sure that Pam Bondi is well aware that if she is not complicit with what will hopefully and soon be a court overseeing the release of these files, she is breaking the law, and there will be accountability. There must be this sentiment from Democrats that I've seen from Eric Swalwell saying, if you are part of this cover-up, which all of them are, save your emails, save your text, everything you've written on paper about this, because we are going to come down on you. Everyone is complicit. Stephen Miller knows that, and that's why when he was asked about Trump signing the files just a couple of hours ago, he had this to say.
Signing the Epstein files bill, and is it at his desk already?
So any questions about that? I have nothing to add to today. I think the White House comm shop's already answered all those questions. Yes?
Can you tell us the latest on whether the Trump administration...
That was just a few short hours ago. Stephen Miller was asked about the release of the files. He had no idea what to say. He didn't want to say anything. Of course, Donald Trump went on to sign the bill to force the release of the files. But either Stephen Miller wasn't informed, which I don't believe because Stephen Miller runs the White House, or they were all so terrified of the media finding out what was happening tonight. Because mind you, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, they put a lid on the White House today, which means they canceled all events, they kicked the press out, no one was allowed to be there. So Stephen Miller was probably well aware of this. He didn't want to tip anyone off, but he was too scared to say anything. Too scared what? Transparency. He didn't want the media to know because he is complicit in the cover-up. He is being caught in the cover-up. Stephen Miller is as involved as everybody, as anybody. If you believe, as I do, that Stephen Miller is running the White House, Stephen Miller is also running this cover-up operation. And he was too scared to say anything. Sure, when it's Fox and it's Will Cain and it's daytime, he'll go on and he'll yell and he'll scream and he says Democrats are Antifa and communist and whatever else he wants to say. But when it comes to the Epstein files, I'd take note that Stephen Miller is choosing his words very, very carefully. Why is Stephen Miller doing that? Why is Stephen Miller, who I would say is one of the more adept players in this administration, he knows what's going on. I don't want to give him credit. He's not a smart or good guy, but he does know where the pieces are. Why is Stephen Miller choosing his words so carefully? Why is he so afraid to speak? Why wouldn't he say anything? Again, one, the obvious answer is because they didn't want to tip the media off to what was happening today. But I think Miller also understands the accountability that's coming and that they can't dig themselves out of this hole. That is for certain. And Jessica Tarloff broke it all down right here. You're going to want to hear every word she says, not only because it pisses off Jesse Waters, but because it is so important.
I didn't want to reinvent something. I didn't
like,
want to start
subscribe right now.
I wanted kind of.
But this idea that the Epstein files is going to be reframed as a Democratic hoax is never going to work. The American public is not cool with it. What does he have? Trump has a minus 39 approval on handling the Epstein files, and only 45% of Republicans even approve at this point. The narrative about Hakeem Jeffries, everyone at this table knows how fundraising emails work. So that email was from someone named Lisa Rossi, who's from a random fundraising group called Dynamic SRG, asking if Epstein wants to go to a generic DCCC dinner that Obama and Jeffries were going to be at. There was never any meeting. There was never any donation. And he appears one time in the Epstein files. By the Miami Herald's count, Trump is mentioned over 1,000 times in the latest tranche that just got out. And people are not going to forget that in 2002, for instance, Trump said, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with." It's even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side. I have never alleged, and I am not alleging now, that Donald Trump has done anything untoward with an underage woman. But if you want to be throwing around single emails from a random fundraising group to try to make Brooklyn Barack look bad and not acknowledge how many times Donald Trump is mentioned in these files, you're just going to look dumb. And I would encourage everyone to not look dumb.
But it's other people mentioning him. It's not his fault when people want to get him.
I just read a quote.
But that was one quote, but other people mentioned him to stop him. They're like the other person, they were all trying to stop Trump.
Why did he want the files to not come out this badly? Why? Just tell me why.
Why do you always fall for this stuff is the bigger question. Again. This is Russia, Ukraine, everything.
I don't think this is the...
There is an attempt to rewrite history that is happening right now. And you see it in the post that Donald Trump made about the release of the Epstein files. He said that he directed Republicans in the House and the Senate to vote for the release, and that is why it happened. That is fundamentally untrue. Why the Epstein files were released, why that vote happened in the House and the Senate, is because Republicans recognized the weakness of Donald Trump, his inability to tell them what to do. But Trump wants to take credit. Johnson wants to take credit. Thune wants to take credit. They want to wash away their sins and pretend that they were on board the entire time. We know that's not the case. We know what role they played in the constant obstruction of the release of these files that has been going on for months now. They have called it a distraction. They have called it a hoax. They have called it every name in the book to get it off of Donald Trump's desk. But that is where it fell tonight. And Donald Trump cannot escape what has happened to his term, what has happened to his administration. It has been consumed by Epstein. It has been consumed by the first ever issue that his cultists do not have a positive approval of him on. This is worse than January 6th somehow for Donald Trump. This is worse than January 6th. There's no coming back on Epstein. There is no rewriting the history. There is no screaming Barack Hussein Obama. It's not going to save him this time.
It's not.
And he knows that. Again, it's why he shut out the press tonight. You're going to want to hear this.
So where is the bill? Is it at the White House? Pamela, that's the question we've all been trying to get to the bottom of. We have about 10 White House producers and reporters who have been asking all of their sources, when is he going to sign the bill? Is the bill even at the White House? All to at least mostly radio silence. Stephen Miller.
He kicked the press out of the White House. Let me say it again. He kicked the press out of the White House. Now, why did Donald Trump do that? Why did Donald Trump kick the press out of the White House? Well, I think the answer is pretty apparent, because he knows what they would have covered. They would have covered the state of chaos. They would have covered the ketchup on the walls. They would have covered the meetings that were happening before that pen hit that paper, which is how are we going to move forward? And how they will move forward is by covering it up. I'm going to continue to say this in every video in which I talk about Epstein, and it is not a warning for you, because I know if you are watching this now, you have been in this fight the whole time. It is a broader warning. Now is the time to talk about Epstein more so than any other point in this entire administration. The cover-up is happening, not just of what they've done in the past couple of months, but what they did in the first administration as well. And we need to call them out. We're gonna on this show. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.
Make it mini real baby from MGA's Miniverse. Unbox so many fun surprises, including an adorable baby. Make mini baby foods. Feed and care for your adorable baby. All new from MGA's Miniverse. Make it mini real baby.
Tackle home projects with Bauer, only at Harbor Freight.
Popeyes ahora te ofrece garlic parm tenders, cheesy bites y marinara sauce en una Freddy Fazbear box terroríficamente buena.
Westminster College has a rich history of excellence in cultivating leaders. And now we can take that experience beyond our campus. We're proud to announce the launch of Westminster Online.
If American citizen, I want y'all to think about this.
Were you recently injured in a car accident?
All right, you guys, so Ticket TV, like, share, and subscribe as y'all come tap on in. And let's get right into this video, man, and talk about what just happened and what's going on as this situation has escalated to a whole nother level. Now, I came in here a little while early today, about a couple of hours ago, and I told y'all about breaking news with the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. He came out and basically, ordered some, military personnel to be HUNG if they did not fall in line with his request. Now, he requested, they were basically questioning whether or not they had to follow his orders if he asked them to do something illegal. Now, Trump went online. Trump said it's called seditious behavior at the highest level. Each one of these traitors, and he called them traitors, to the country.
Hit that like button right now. Subscribe. Double tap that screen.
The authorities. Now, the House Democrat leadership said today that they have contacted the U.S. Capitol Police Department and the House Sergeant at Arms to protect a group of lawmakers after Donald Trump appeared to suggest that their comments were punishable by death. Now, Trump considerably ramped up, of according to this report, the severity of his rhetoric against Democrats today after a group of military veterans serving in Congress released a video encouraging service members to resist unlawful orders. Now, I told you what he said. He said that they should be H-A or H-U-N-G, right? And a lot of people had a lot to say about that on social media because a lot of people said, hey, that is how the man on your screen allegedly lost his life. Let me repeat myself again. Those comments from Trump went viral today online. And a lot of people linked those comments where he said to H-A-N-G them. They said, well, hey, ain't that what happened with old boy in himself? Right? Now, yeah, I had to block you, brother. You come in here running your mouth, I had to block you, dog. You a troll, boy. But anyways, though, so now they called the cops, right? Apparently, a group of House and Senate Democrats who served in the military or national security, led by Senator Elisa Slotkin, released a video. And in that video, they urged soldiers to refuse illegal orders, right? In addition, right, to Ms. Slotkin, Senator Mark Kelly, Representatives Chris DeLuzio, Maggie Goodlander, Chrissy Holahan, and Jason Crow appeared in this video, right? Now, they said no one has to carry out orders that violate the law or the Constitution, right? Now, the lawmakers did not highlight any specific orders they believe should not be obeyed. Now, they have released in the video a joint statement following Trump's post that doubled down on their initial comments. Now, they said we swore to take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. They said no threat, intimidation, or call for violence will deter us from that sacred obligation. They also repeated the line that was used to end their video: don't give up the ship. Now, they have now called the cops and they have reported the President of the United States of America. I don't think I've ever heard anything like this before. Have y'all ever heard the president get the cops called on? They don't call the cops on Donald Trump, man. They don't call the police. They don't call the police on this man. Bro, you cannot be out here talking about you're going to H-A-N-G people, bro. You can't say it. You're the president of the United States, bro. This is not medieval times, man. And because he said that, everybody is saying they're talking about Epstein again and what happened with him in his cell. This is crazy work. I don't even think he knew if he would say that, it would have them talking about what happened with Epstein. Bro, this man, he don't know what this, bro, listen, I'm going to repeat this to everybody right now. Based off what he said, if anything happened to them people, if anybody were to follow through with any of the things Trump said, I'm telling y'all right now, Trump going to prison.
Done.
Whoever did it, they going to prison.
Done.
And Trump going with him.
Done.
Trump going with him. I'm just being real with y'all, man. Trump going with him. He going with him.
Done.
There's no other way around this. You can't do that, bro. You can't tell people to H-A-N-G people, bro. You can't nobody say, oh, this is fake news. No, he said it. he said this, bro. People said people are making stuff up. No, we're not making this up. He said H-A-N-G them. George Washington would. He didn't ask no question mark. No, now you put an exclamation point on that shit. 2 of them. Bro, you can't say that. That's like damn near ordering a hit. If somebody follows through on that, it said, I did it because I was in service of what the president said, he going to prison. Y'all don't believe this? They called the cops on the man. But they called the cops. These motherfuckers called the cops on the president. Oh my God, bro. I ain't never heard no shit like that before in my life, man. They called the cops on the, imagine somebody picking the phone, call the cops on the president, man. Come on, man. Hey, bro, that boy Trump be riding dirty, boy. Oh my God. Trump be riding dirty, man. That dude don't care, bro. That dude said H-A-N-G them. That's crazy, bro. Don't y'all know what type of undertones that word has? Oh my God, bro. He called him traitors. Boy, Trump say, hey, Trump say, if you don't do what I say, you a traitor, boy. If you don't do what I say, you a traitor. Not what the law say. Not what the Constitution say. Trump said, if you don't do what I say, what I order. Now, I need to know in the comment section, how many of y'all agree with that? How many of y'all in the comment section, if you guys agree that everyone should listen to every single thing Trump say, every order he say, everybody should listen, press 1. Press 1. That's all I want to know. If you don't, press 2. If you think you should only follow the law, press 2. But if you think that you should listen to everything he said, everything he said, man, y'all, man, this is crazy, man. Bro, man, they called the cops on this man, bro. It's all.
Real quick, I need a roll call. You already know you in here with your boy Dilla T, my fam. And you know this no filters. Hit that like button, double tap that screen, family. You hear me? Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode. It's free to do it always. Now you see what's going on. Excuse me. And the issue with this is that this is another added on distraction that's going down the same road that the first situation went down. You understand me? Because at the end of the day, they continue to keep growing and keep going and saying the outrageous now because he mad now, he cussing everybody out. But then I understood what she was explaining about, hey, we got to let these people know if you go against the military, you go against the chief, you can get that H-A-N-G treatment, which makes you think that's what happened to Epstein in the cell. Because why is we talking like that in this 2026? If anything, you would have just said, I would have got them wiped out or something. You feel me? So you got to watch what you're saying and what you understand, who you're saying it around. Because at the end of the day, that's a real thing, fam. Your own president talking bad and getting caught up. Ah. So what that mean for you?
All over the news, man. Bro, and why did Trump say that? Why did he say H-A-N-G? Why did he say that? Everybody.
They say if it's too good to be true, it must be. But at WGU, you can get your degree with the same accreditations as the Lord.
Nancy, Caroline, this morning President Trump accused 6 Democratic lawmakers of seditious behavior punishable by death. Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No. Let's be clear about what the president is responding to, because many in this room want to talk about the president's response, but not what brought the president to responding in this way. You have sitting members of the United States Congress who conspired together to orchestrate a video message to members of the United States military, to active duty service members, to members of the national security apparatus, encouraging them to defy the president's lawful orders. The sanctity of our military rests on the chain of command. And if that chain of command is broken, it can lead to people getting killed. It can lead to chaos. And that's what these members of Congress who swore an oath to abide by the Constitution are essentially encouraging. We have 1.3 active duty service members in this country. And if they hear this radical message from sitting members of Congress, that could inspire chaos and it could incite violence and it certainly could disrupt the chain of command. These 3 members of Congress, I will also add, knew exactly what they were doing. You look at Alyssa Slotkin, she's a former member of the CIA. Mark Kelly was a captain in the US Navy. Maggie Goodlander was a naval officer, and notably, she is also the wife of Joe Biden's national security former advisor, Jake Sullivan. And so these members knew what they were doing. They were leading into their credentials as former members of our military, as veterans, as former members of the national security apparatus to signal to people serving under this commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, that you can defy him and you can betray your oath of office. That is a very, very dangerous message, and it perhaps is punishable by law. I'm not a lawyer. I'll leave that to the Department of Justice and the Department of War to decide.
But the president has frequently, but Charlie, can I just follow up? The president and the vice president, for that matter, have accused the other side of encouraging political violence. Isn't that exactly what the president is doing when he says that members of Congress should be killed?
Why aren't you talking about what these members of Congress are doing to encourage and incite violence? They are literally saying to 1.3 million active duty service members not to defy the chain of command, not to follow lawful orders. Every single
illegal order, which
but they're suggesting, Nancy, that the president has given illegal orders, which he has not. Every single order that is given to this United States military by this commander-in-chief and through this chain of command, through the Secretary of War, is lawful. And the courts have proven that. This administration has an unparalleled record at the Supreme Court because we are following the laws. We don't defy court orders. We do things by the books. And to suggest and encourage that active duty service members defy the chain of command is a very dangerous thing for sitting members of Congress to do. And they should be held accountable, and that's what the president wants to see. Complete reversal of the
You can get with this, and you can get with that.
Folks are rejecting Republicans and the Trump
approval is at an all-time low. Although even on Fox, they try to inflate it by 1 point. They're like, his approval is now 39%. And there's like a graphic that says 38%. But even they know how deeply unpopular he is. Here, play this clip.
A new Reuters poll shows President Trump's approval rating falling to its lowest level. And this is apparently because of prices and the Epstein files. His approval rating sits at 39%. That is down 9 points from when he took office.
So what does Donald Trump do to address that? Well, he holds a conference with the Saudis who his family is in business with, that the Trump organization's making billions of dollars off of, and Jared Kushner's making money off of. And Donald Trump's message to the American people, and all the rich billionaires from Saudi Arabia and the Middle East and other oligarchs in the room, including Elon Musk, who's now back in the picture. You live off deductions. You guys love the deductions that I give you, right? I give you the best deductions. Here, play this clip.
They don't know. This room, they live on deductions. Me too. How much of a deduction do I get? We all live on it. Middle-income people, they don't know about that. They don't really have deductions. We're giving them a deduction on the interest if they buy a nice Tesla car and they borrow the money. You're so lucky, I'm with you.
And then Elon's back. That's how you do it. We love deductions. I mean, I'm sure we buy your Tesla. Wow. And then Donald Trump, despite kicking people off of Snap and ripping away people's health care. He tries to brag that he's lifted over 600,000 Americans on food stamps, and that's happening rapidly. No, what you're doing is you're taking away programs that people rely on to live, and you're starving Americans to death, and you're making things far less affordable. Let's play this clip.
In 9 months, we've lifted over 600,000 Americans off food stamps, and that's happening rapidly. You know, when we had the problem 2 weeks ago on the SNAP, and they talked about all of this, the numbers, so
talked about blah, blah, and that's where basically his speeches is some variation of blah and fawning over the Saudi crown prince. To make sense of this, let's bring in the chair of the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, which is responsible for these big midterms coming up and regaining control in the House of Representatives. We got Chair Susan Del Bene. Chair Del Bene, Congresswoman Del Bene, it's great to see you again. There seems to be momentum. Trump's approval seems to be plummeting. When you and I last spoke, it was before elections earlier in November, which seemed to be a resounding repudiation of Trump and MAGA, but they seem to be doubling down, Congresswoman. What do you make of it all?
Well, it was a resounding repudiation, and also a testament to what happens when you have great candidates who are talking about the issues that matter and want to serve to help their communities. People want folks who are going to fight for them, and we have great folks all across the country who were focused on the issues that matter to the American people. Folks are rejecting Republicans and the Trump agenda. It has been damaging. It has raised costs for families across the country. Food, housing, healthcare, childcare, energy costs, all going up. And Trump and Republicans promised to lower costs on day one. It's a big broken promise, and they don't even care. They're not even talking about it. Here we are. Finally, the House is open again, and we're not doing any legislation to help lower costs for families. It's not a priority for them, but we're going to continue to hold them accountable because the American people want folks who are going to work for them.
We also saw Democrats fight back surgically against the Trump effort to rig the midterms through the gerrymandering tactics that he used. Perhaps not the best idea for his DOJ to write a letter to Governor Abbott saying, we must racially gerrymander Texas. Even the Trump-appointed judge says, you realize that your letter uses the word racially gerrymander, which is quite literally the cause of action to block this type of gerrymandering. But Democrats have been fighting back and been saying, look, we're not just going to unilaterally disarm. And so lots of people are saying that, when all is said and done, it may be about even. And that didn't just happen by chance. It happened because I think there was a fight and people are recognizing there needs to be checks and balances in this government.
Well, and we are going to continue to fight back. What happened in Texas was absolutely Trump demanding 5 more seats and Republicans in Texas saying, yes, sir. The people of Texas hate this across the board. And yet the people of Texas didn't get to have a say. The people of California did. They spoke out loudly with Proposition 50. They're going to stand up to fight against Republicans' attempt to rig the system across the country. That was a big win for representation, not just for California, but for folks across the country. Republicans have not given up. They're still pushing hard on Missouri, Indiana, North Carolina, looking at Florida, other Indiana, just going on and on to try to rig the system because they can't win when they don't have the American people on their side. They're not standing up for the issues that matter. They don't seem interested in doing the work and prioritizing the challenges that are facing the American people. They are just blindly loyal to Donald Trump, and their focus right now is on rigging the system. That's the only way they can stay in power. So we're going to continue to use every tool we have to fight back.
One of the things that I think people like to see is that the D trip and Democrats are getting aggressive in areas where in the past Democrats kind of conceded. I mean, you even talk about this special election happening in Tennessee's 7th Congressional District in early December, which was Congressmember Greene, Mark Greene's seat, and you have Afton Bain running as the Democratic candidate against the MAGA Republican candidate Matt Van Epps. We see resources being, even focused on that special election. It's a lot of animated people because you've seen shifts, 10, 15 point over performances over and over again. And so, you can look at other seats across the country. Also, we're seeing Virginia seats now, according to the Cook political report, in play. New Jersey seats in play. Georgia, seats that didn't even seem attainable just a year ago when I was sitting at the Thanksgiving table. It seems the map seems to be more favorable, and this could be a big pickup. So what needs to be done now to make the case, to bring it home?
Well, save it, Aldi, and save the holiday spirit.
They don't want you to know about it.
Hey, did you know you might get a big cash payout if you were in a car accident up to 1 year?
In the midterms.
The main thing that we do is recruit great candidates. And remember, we're running in very different districts all across the country, from Kentucky and Tennessee to Michigan and Pennsylvania, Arizona, Iowa, Nebraska. Recruit candidates who are authentic, independent-minded members of their community who want to go to Washington, D.C. to fight for their communities. These are the purple districts across the country. When we have great candidates focused on the issues that matter, we win. And that's been true over and over again. As you said, Democrats have been running 13 points ahead since November of 2024. People are rejecting the Trump and Republican agenda. And when we have great candidates running who they know are working hard to represent their communities, coming back to Washington, D.C. to do a great job, represent and get things done for their communities, that's how we win. We're going to hold Republicans accountable for the damage that they are causing, and we're going to have great candidates running strong campaigns and take back the House in 2026.
Look, you see the number there from the independents, plus 33, and that's not unique to that poll. One of the things that I go back to, plus 33 in favor of Democrats, one of the things that I go back to is just basic governance. The fact that the MAGA Republicans in the House and in the Senate, you and I are talking about the House now, are not doing literally the job, and they're supposed to be a co-equal branch, and they're supposed to speak with the other political party, and they're supposed to be at a basic level before we get even into the policies, debate, discussion, co-equal branch, checks and balances, sovereignty, these issues they're not doing. And I just think, at some level too, the people are just hey, can we get back to fifth grade government, what it was supposed to be? And then we can talk about policies, but there seems to be just that in the air. And of course, I don't want to undermine the cruelty, the ripping away of our healthcare, the ICE Gestapo on the streets, disappearing people, the trade war against the world, the devastating economy. But I think too, independents are what the hell is this?
There are no moderate Republicans left in the Republican Party. They are just a rubber stamp for Donald Trump. The House, they shut down the House for over 50 days. Went on vacation. We're not doing any work at all.
This is Democracy Watch. Mark, we have a really shocking story here. So there is a pro-Trump election clerk who was charged and incarcerated for her role in a 2021 voting system data breach. She was incarcerated in state prison, and now Donald Trump is trying to do something unprecedented to be able to get her out. Can you explain what the news is here?
Yeah, I wish I could explain the how, but this is the big breaking news that everyone needs to pay attention to. Tina Peters, as you point out, is in a Colorado state prison, having been convicted in Colorado state court. Now, she has become a cause celeb for election deniers, both within the White House and outside, right? She is sort of a national martyr of sorts for people who want to undermine free and fair elections, and particularly people who want to lie about the 2020 elections. And she has real strong support within the administration. And for months, you and I have been watching as the administration has waged sort of low-level warfare, essentially legal warfare against the state of Colorado, trying to get her released. And they've done it through court filings, Donald Trump has suggested something bad might happen to the state of Colorado if they don't release Tina Peters. And now we have from the team at Democracy Docket this really disturbing news report that essentially the Trump administration wants her transferred from state custody to federal custody. So in other words, move from the state prison system to the federal prison system. Now, this is, to say the least, highly unusual and irregular because she's being incarcerated in state custody because she was convicted of a state crime. She has not been charged, as far as I know, with any federal offense. Like, there is no basis for having her incarcerated in federal custody. One is only left to assume that either the Trump administration wants her moved to federal custody so that they could somehow then release her outside of the jurisdiction of Colorado, which would be, would be a blockbuster obstruction of justice by the U.S. government against a lawful state criminal order, or they want to put her in federal custody to give her some improved conditions, which we saw reported around Ghislaine Maxwell, who was in federal custody as part of her conviction related to the Epstein matters, but was in a higher security prison. And then after she miraculously gave an interview with one of Donald Trump's personal lawyers turned a federal prosecutor, saying that Donald Trump had done nothing wrong. She was unaware of Donald Trump ever doing wrong. Now she has improved conditions in a much lower security facility.
As far as you know, is it legal to move someone who has no case, no prosecution, no conviction in the federal court system, to move them from a state prison into a federal prison?
I mean, you do get these circumstances where there are disputes between state and federal officials as to where someone ought to serve their sentence. Imagine, for example, you have someone who is convicted of federal terrorism charges and also state murder charges.
Right, but this is a situation where you don't have the competing interest. It's only a state prosecution.
Correct. And so under these circumstances, it is highly, highly unusual. I'll be honest with you, I am not familiar with it ever happening. I imagine it might happen in instances where, for example, a state facility is overcrowded and they contract with the state federal government to keep someone in custody on behalf of the state. But this is not that. I mean, this is obviously just the latest effort by the Department of Justice to try to strong arm the state of Colorado to essentially give up their punishment of someone convicted in state court. And look, Tina Peters filed a federal habeas petition, which is what you do when you're incarcerated in state prison and you believe your federal constitutional rights have been denied. Of course, the result of that wouldn't be to be moved to federal prison; it would just be to be released. The federal government, in the form of the Trump administration, has supported that petition, and obviously we've seen Donald Trump suggest that he's going to try to use the pardon power for people like Tina Peters, but of course it doesn't apply to state crimes. So I think that this is just the latest effort by Pam Bondi and the White House to try to put pressure on the state of Colorado to force them to find a way to release her. And I suspect, Brian, unfortunately, as we've seen, this is, Donald Trump is willing to inappropriately and impermissibly use a lot of different pressure points with states, whether it's threatening federal fundings, whether it's sending the U.S. military. Like, we've seen a lot of ways in which Donald Trump tries to apply pressure, and I suspect that this is just the tip of the iceberg of what we're going to see in Colorado.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, even if, in the unlikely event that she was transferred from state prison to federal prison, that he still wouldn't have the jurisdiction to be able to say he's going to pardon her because she was never convicted at the federal level, she was convicted at the state level. But at the same time, I think that I and others have to disabuse ourselves of this notion that Trump can't do something because he shouldn't do something, because there's no legal avenue for him to do it, when in reality we know he's just going to do it. And then if she's in federal prison, who's going to stand there and stop him from making sure that those doors open and that she walks out the front door and is free? So, our mentality in a lot of this is stuck in this kind of old way of thinking where, Donald Trump can't do something, but then he does it and then it's done. And I think we have to get used to the fact that if he's trying to do that here, there's a very clear reason that he's trying to do it for.
Yep.
Right.
Families
gotta
need
figure that
health care, not giveaways to billionaires. See my website for more on how we can serve you.
And is it cozy, you thought, but then you found a room with more room on Kayak. Browse hotels, track prices, take space. Search and compare holiday travel with Kayak.
So we're very excited about the.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I am assuming that, you know, his goal here would either be, if he was able to effectuate this, would either be to release her outright in some state other than Colorado, which shouldn't, and I know you when lawyers say shouldn't in the age of Trump, but shouldn't prevent Colorado from then going to that state and having her returned. But, you know, that's option one, I suppose. Option two is he says, you know what, we're gonna take you into federal custody and you will spend your incarceration, you know, at the Four Seasons, where we will set up a floor at the Four Seasons as a federal.
It's gonna be like that prison in Goodfellas where they're cutting where they're grilling up steaks and cutting the garlic real thin. You know.
I mean, this is just what I'm imagining, because otherwise, you know, this is totally bizarre. But look, we've seen this. I mean, Donald Trump is now pardoning January 6th defendants for the second time. Like, so, you know, these are people who have been pardoned once, and then the courts say, well, we're convicting you or putting you in prison for a crime unrelated to January 6th, and then he pardons them again. So, you know, he is totally willing to abuse the criminal justice system, not just to punish his enemies, right? We focus a lot on the punish the enemies part, but also to just do anything he can to try to prevent the punishment of anyone who has been a supporter of the big lie or election denialism.
And can you talk about that a little bit? Because we have seen now, not only has Trump pardoned those 1,600 insurrectionists, we like to call them the boots of the insurrection, but he's also signed, you know, under the cloak of darkness, the dead of night, just this past week, pardons for everybody who is involved in the law enforcement aspect of perpetuating the big lie, the Jenna Ellises and all of those other people who were involved at the DOJ or the federal government level. And those are the suits of the insurrection. And so can you talk about what this does, what message this sends when you have all of the people who stormed the Capitol, all of the people who created the environment where those people could storm the Capitol, all of those people get a get out of jail free card. And look, we've got another election coming up in 2026 and 2028. And so what does it say that now this is the message being sent ahead of those upcoming elections?
Yeah, so just to be clear, the pardons you're referring to, the second bunch, are symbolic, right? I mean, he's pardoning people for state offenses. The fake electors scandals, for example, are state offenses, and federal pardons don't apply there. And he's doing it, you know, and Ed Martin, I think, is the one who actually posted that, I think, on social media, where he said, leave no MAGA behind. Like, they're doing it to send a clear signal to the Tina Peters of the world that essentially, as long as Donald Trump is in office, he will move heaven and earth. He will do everything he can to reward them for their election denialism, for their loyalty. And that means that no matter what crime they have committed, no matter what jurisdiction they committed it in, if they are loyal to Donald Trump, he will try to pardon them. He'll try to spring them out of prison if they're in state prison. He'll do everything he can. He'll punish states if they pursue election deniers. He will intimidate people like Tish James who have brought charges. You know, that all of these things will be in service of these MAGA extremists who, you know, in many cases had convictions that were pardoned. In some cases, like I said, he's proactively doing it, but he will do everything he can to protect them. And the message it sends going to 2026 is that if you are willing to subvert an election for Donald Trump, if you are willing to engage in violence to try to overturn the results of an election for Donald Trump, if you are willing to tamper with election results to benefit Donald Trump, like, as long as it is in favor of him and his cause, Donald Trump will be there for you. Like, no matter what you do, Donald Trump will be there with a pardon, with prosecutorial discretion, with going after your own political enemies, going after people who are bringing you to account. to justice at the state level. He'll fire federal prosecutors who may have prosecuted you. He will fire FBI agents who may have investigated you. Like that is the message he wants to send. And I'll tell you, for those of us on the front lines of the fight for democracy in 2026, this is a daunting thing. I mean, we have the Department of Justice already going after his political enemies. We've got the Department of Justice being used to attack voting rights and make it harder to vote. We've got a Republican voter suppression, election subversion war machine that is funded by billionaires that is in court every single day. I see more lawsuits being filed by them. And against that, we are trying to do everything we can to also be in court to protect free and fair elections, to also be combating the map rigging efforts that Republicans are doing. My law firm, we're in 12 cases involving redistricting alone. We have more than 60 cases all told involving voting. And we're doing that at the same time that, as we recorded this video, Donald Trump posted on social media a post that says Obama's Russia hoax treason club with me, a picture of me and my name right in the middle of it, along with James Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Page, Hill, you get the Hillary Clinton, you get the drill. So we're dealing with all this stuff. And on their side, Donald Trump is just turbocharging them.
It's worth asking here, we'll finish off with this. In terms of the plenary nature of the pardon power, does there need to be some reforms to the pardon power? And how would that even go about, recognizing that the Constitution says that any president can pardon anybody for any reason?
Yeah, so we need a lot of reforms. And, these reforms are not going to come easy. And they're not going to come quick. And anyone who thinks that, if Democrats take control of Congress and Democrats win the White House in 2028, that come 2029, everything is going to snap back. That we'll be back in the days of Obama or Biden. That's not going to happen. The damage that Donald Trump has done to our justice system, to our Constitution, to the rule of law is going to be enduring. And it's going to take years, if not a decade or more, for it to be fully repaired. And when it's repaired, it's not going to look like it did before. It's going to have to look different. And one of those things is, Brian, we're going to need to constrain presidents in ways that we have assumed they were constrained by good faith, in the way in which we assume they were constrained by sense of honor and decency. And it's going to look very different. So, I think we're going to need grand jury reform. We cannot have a system on which we joke that a grand jury would indict a ham sandwich, and therefore we're trusting the nonpartisan nature of the prosecutors to be the check. We can't do that anymore. We need to make the grand juries a real check. You mentioned pardon power reform. That's going to require change in the Constitution, but if ever there was something to change the Constitution for, this would be high on the list. We cannot have the president dispensing executive clemency, as it's called, to protect his enforcers against his opponents and against democracy. So there's going to have to be a lot of reforms. It's something I focus a lot of my time and attention on at Democracy Docket. I write about this. I speak about it. It's one of the reasons why you and I do so many videos on these topics. And I want to take this opportunity right now to ask everyone to subscribe to this channel. There's a button right in front of you. You hit that button and hit the bell to make sure you are kept informed when there is new content, because it's the best way to know what's happening to democracy in court.
Well, I appreciate that, and I would also highly recommend for anybody who has not yet signed up for Democracy Docket to be able to read about the reforms that are needed, as well as anything else going on in the voting rights world, the legal world. This is the newsletter, this is the site to subscribe to, so I'm going to put the link to Democracy Docket right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Help support Mark's work, not just in the media ecosystem where we desperately need to elevate voices like his, but also in the front lines where he's fighting in the courts where it matters most right now. So again, that link is on the screen and also in the post description. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.
That was different.
Were you recently injured in a car accident? If so, you need to stop now.
I'm joined now by the co-host of Pod Save America, Tommy Vitor. Tommy, thanks for joining me.
Brian, good to see you.
So we've seen an unprecedented fracturing of Trump's coalition as a result of these Epstein files. The vote in the House, 427-1, unanimous in the Senate. And so I'm curious, as we move forward in Trump's administration, do you think that this is a permanent weakening? Does this make you look like more of a lame duck? Or is this just a momentary blip because the Epstein files are so different from everything else and Trump once again consolidates all of his control and power over the Republican conference?
Yeah, but it was a real nail biter in the house, huh? It's pretty remarkable. I mean, look, I think all of these members of Congress saw Donald Trump fighting tooth and nail to prevent this bill from getting passed, and then saw him acquiesce on Sunday night. And then the entire Congress voted to do something that he didn't want them to do, except for one person. So it's hard not to view this as the beginning of everyone starting to view Donald Trump as a lame duck. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't have a lot of power, doesn't mean he can't tell the MAGA base what to do, doesn't mean he can't intervene in primaries in Republican districts, but it's a chink in the armor, and hopefully the first of many.
Do you think that this devalues in some way the threats that he's been throwing at people? I mean, he unendorsed Marjorie Taylor Greene and basically said, if I can field a primary opponent for her, let's do exactly that. But it didn't seem to have any impact. And in fact, she ended up being on the right side of this Epstein thing with virtually every other Republican in all of Congress. And so I'm just curious how you're thinking about this idea that the biggest weapon Trump was able to wield beforehand was these threats that he would throw at these Republican lawmakers, Republican senators, whose primary goal is just to keep their jobs. And now recognizing that, like, well, Marjorie did it and she got, the full Trump treatment and nothing really happened to her. And so maybe this isn't as scary as I had presumed it would be.
Yeah, I mean, he did the same thing with Thomas Massie, right? And, he's trying to raise money for an opponent and super PACs to go against Massie. Look, it certainly, I think courage begets courage. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, being able to tell Donald Trump, like, no, I'm not with you. I'm on the side of the angels here. I'm standing with the victims. I think that's a big deal. And so, look, I think in this gerrymandered, hyper-partisan world we live in, the primary threat to most Republican members of Congress is still going to be a primary challenge from the right. And if Donald Trump decides to endorse their opponent, he can make life really hard for them. But he can't do it to all of them. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, like, the entire Republican caucus, except for one dude, sided with Marjorie Taylor Greene and not Donald Trump. And I do think that does weaken his power to threaten these members going forward.
What is going through Clay Higgins' mind? Like, it would be one thing if it's one thing if any of these Republicans are going to vote to protect pedophiles because they want to be on Trump's good side and protect Donald Trump. But for a vote that's symbolic because it's going to fail anyway, that's just for him. That's just so that he can go home at night and be like, well, you did it, Clay. You did your small part, symbolic though it may be, to make sure that you can protect pedophiles today. Like, what is going through that guy's mind?
Man, I read that statement and then I read it again and I tried to understand what he was talking about, and it makes absolutely no sense here. I don't know what he's doing. It's crazy. It seems like unbelievably politically damaging. It's not even going to help Trump. It just makes the whole story look ridiculous. It makes Trump seem odd. Like, it's a mess. What an idiot.
And by the way, it also deprives Mike Johnson of being able to say, well, we were all 100% on board with this effort too. It's not just the Democrats who want to get accountability for those who were involved in Epstein's crimes. It's us. But like, you can't even say that. I mean, first of all, that would be so disingenuous that it would make your head hurt. But even just having the talking point, Clay Higgins precluded Mike Johnson from being able to have that.
Yeah, and I also love how Speaker Johnson is like, look, I don't love this bill either, but the place to fix it is over in the Senate, and I have some assurances that that's exactly what they're going to do. John Thune is like, not even, nope, we're literally not even going to vote on the thing. We're just going to assume it's done. It was like amazing. Thune wanted no part of this. He's like, this is your mess, Mike Johnson, not mine.
You had mentioned gerrymandering before, and so I want your reaction to the fact that Trump had issued his clarion call to Greg Abbott to redraw Texas's maps to give them 5 seats. California said, if you do this, we're going to do it too, so don't do this. Texas went ahead with it anyway, redrew their maps. California redrew their maps. California's got challenged 5 times in court and beat back every single court challenge. Meanwhile, Texas's maps get challenged and they lose in court. So now, because of the process that was started by Trump and executed by Greg Abbott, they are down 5 seats compared to California.
It is, it could be a big cell phone for Donald Trump here. I mean, look, I think this, you would know it better than I do about sort of the legal path forward for the Texas maps, and it's probably not a done deal. But boy, would it be sweet if, because of Donald Trump's absurd mid-year intervention in trying to force Texas to redistrict, if he fails and then fails in Indiana, and then Utah goes the Democrats' way as well, and all of a sudden Democrats go into 2026 with wind in our sails because of redistricting. Like, this is not a scenario I ever would have imagined.
It's also worth noting North Carolina's maps are being challenged as well. Missouri is maybe going to a referendum for voters to decide on. So both of those maps are also in jeopardy. And meanwhile, Maryland has announced a redistricting commission that the governor is going to lead. So we should expect one more seat in Maryland. He told me in an interview that we are going to see new maps in time for 2026. So again, that process may continue to play itself out. As it relates specifically to Texas, with this kind of 3-judge panel, it's appealed directly to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court is going to be the next group of people to weigh in on this. And so they could, we could have a whole range of different rulings here, where either the maps are left in place where they agree with the lower court panel or they want to hear this case fully on the merits, or they just rule on the shadow docket. So we don't know what's going to happen, but still more to come. And at least we know, I mean, this ruling was handed down authored by a judge who Trump himself appointed. So it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world for the Supreme Court to say, look, this is based on conservative jurisprudence, and so if we're abiding by conservative principles, which that and $10 will get you a foot long in Subway, but if we're abiding by conservative principles, then there is wouldn't be out of the realm of ordinary for us to agree with this lower court ruling.
It's amazing. I mean, if this boomerangs in Trump's face, I'll be so happy. And also, once again, shout out Gavin Newsom. There's a lot of attention that's been paid to his tweets and the tone and the kind of the funny memes. But what Gavin Newsom really did here was use the power that he has as the governor of California to do something really meaningful for Democrats as we go into 2026 via Prop 50 in this redistricting plan. And I think that, more than almost anything else, is what Democrats want from our elected officials. It's like, use the power you have to the greatest extent that you can, and we will be happy.
So speaking of Gavin Newsom, obviously a contender as we head toward 2028, there's been also some kind of angling on the Republican side. Ted Cruz was asked specifically if he was going to run for president in 2028 and didn't give a no. And I feel like we've crossed some degree of a Rubicon here, because I feel like a month ago, if you had asked any Republican if they were willing to run in 2028, they would have never said anything, or they would have just said no, or done genuflecting at the altar of Donald Trump. But do you think that there's some relationship between the fact that Trump does seem weakened, especially in light of the whole Epstein situation, to the point where you can have someone like Ted Cruz be asked about a potential 2028 run, and the immediate answer not be no, or some genuflecting about how great Donald Trump is?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty weird couple of months. I mean, look, if you'd asked me this question 3 months ago, I would have been like, look, man, Trump's running for a third term. It's not constitutional. I'm not happy about it. I don't know what we can do. Then all of a sudden, Trump came out and said he doesn't think he could run again in 2028. And he's sort of like anointing both Rubio and J.D. Vance. But, Ted Cruz is an operator. He's wanted to be president his whole life. He will run and run and run, even though nobody wants him. But the fact that he wasn't willing to just kind of cave to the wishes of Donald Trump and hand the reins over, at least rhetorically for now, to Rubio and to J.D. Vance is pretty interesting.
With that said, going back to the Epstein thing for just a moment, we did hear from Pam Bondi when she was at the podium at the DOJ speaking. She'd been asked specifically, is there anything that's going to stop you from releasing like the full breadth of the files, including that announcement that she made just a few days back, where she said that she's like acquiescing to Trump's demands to investigate a bunch of Democrats, Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, J.P. Morgan Chase. Do you think that this is going to be their last ditch Hail Mary pass, so that even if Trump does sign the bill forcing the release of these files, that there's that caveat that says, we can release almost all of the files, but not the ones that are involved in this ongoing investigation into a bunch of Democrats?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big concern, right? I mean, this bill can pass, but we still then have to trust Trump's DOJ to actually release these files. And I don't have much confidence that his team would ever put out anything damaging to Donald Trump. And then there's the scenario you're talking about here, which is that they could claim that there are now ongoing investigations, and anything that is a part of that investigation can't be released because they need to protect the files for, law enforcement reasons. So that's another thing I think we have to watch. Mostly, I just think like Pam Bondi's a moron and she's flailing. I mean, I think she said she recently learned new information that changed her mind about whether or not to release the Epstein files. I don't believe that for a second. So I don't know. I think what keeps happening with this Epstein issue is Donald Trump can't put it to bed. You know what I mean? Like, even if this bill passes, we will all still be waiting for them to actually release the documents. And then people will be combing through the documents to see what's missing. Like, there is a chance that this is a never-ending damaging story for him.
In terms of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino one day trying to go back to a podcasting career, how do you think their audience reacts to their return, to their valiant return after staking so much of their identity and brands on this idea that they're going to be these fearless warriors to go after the people involved in Epstein's crimes, and instead they're 11 months into an administration that has only tried to cover it up?
Buddy, like, I'm like a close Kash Patel watcher because I think he is a uniquely dangerous and dishonest and unqualified individual in that job. So I pay a lot of attention to him. And I also...
Hold on, Dave. Talking about look at how his TV hooked up. Hold on. But hit that like button and double tap that screen. Let me tell you something. Become a member right now. We need to get off the fact of worrying about who on the list, and we need to start worrying about who was on the flight list. Because there's people on the list that didn't have nothing to do with no PDFs. There's people that was on the list that dealt with money and other things like that, trying to negotiate, and found out we can't negotiate with him. And so they move on. So it's a big difference, man, because yet they still just let that happen like that. And now they sitting up and acting like, oh my God, Trump about to do something to somebody that had to call the police on Trump already. Ever? We ever called him on Trump? Tracy in the building. It's just hard to think in my mind. They called the police on Trump. You know it's a difference, fam. Hit that like button right now. Double tap that screen. Hit that like button, double tap that screen right now.
I'm joined now by the co-host of Pod Save America, Tommy Vitor. Tommy, thanks for joining me.
Millions of Americans use credit cards to purchase goods every day.
This is Democracy Watch. Mark, we have a really shocking story here. So there is a pro-Trump election clerk who was charged and
They are literally saying to 1.3 million active duty service members not to defy the chain of command, not to follow lawful orders. Every single
illegal order, which
but
is
they're suggesting,
and it's a distraction to us,
Nancy,
man.
that the president has given illegal orders, which he has not.
This morning, President Trump accused 6 Democratic lawmakers of seditious behavior punishable by death. Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No. Let's be clear about what the president is responding to, because many in this room want to talk about the president's response, but not what brought the president to responding in this way. You have sitting members of the United States Congress who conspired together to orchestrate a video message to members of the United States military, to active duty service members, to members of the national security apparatus, encouraging them to defy the president's lawful orders. The sanctity of our military rests on the chain of command. And if that chain of command is broken, it can lead to people getting killed. It can lead to chaos. And that's what these members of Congress who swore an oath to abide by the Constitution are essentially encouraging. We have 1.3 active duty service members in this country. And if they hear this radical message from sitting members of Congress, that could inspire chaos and it could incite violence and it certainly could disrupt the chain of command. These 3 members of Congress, I will also add, knew exactly what they were doing. You look at Alyssa Slotkin, she's a former member of the CIA. Mark Kelly was a captain in the US Navy. Maggie Goodlander was a naval officer, and notably, she is also the wife of Joe Biden's national security former advisor, Jake Sullivan. And so these members knew what they were doing. They were leading into their credentials as former members of our military, as veterans, as former members of the national security apparatus to signal to people serving under this commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, that you can defy him and you can betray your oath of office. That is a very, very dangerous message, and it perhaps is punishable by law. I'm not a lawyer. I'll leave that to the Department of Justice and the Department of War to decide.
But the president has
Chris,
frequently, but Caroline, can I just follow up? The president and the vice president, for that matter, have accused the other side of encouraging political violence. Isn't that exactly what the president is doing when he says that members of Congress should be killed?
Why aren't you talking about what these members of Congress are doing to encourage and incite violence? They are literally saying to 1.3 million active duty service members not to defy the chain of command, not to follow lawful orders. Every single
an illegal order, which
but
is
they're suggesting, Nancy, that the president has given illegal orders, which he has not. Every single order that is given to this United States military by this commander-in-chief and through this chain of command, through the Secretary of War, is lawful. And the courts have proven that. This administration has an unparalleled record at the Supreme Court because we are following the laws. We don't defy court orders. We do things by the books. And to suggest and encourage that active duty service members defy the chain of command is a very dangerous thing for sitting members of Congress to do. And they should be held accountable, and that's what the president wants to see.
I don't believe in Pam Bondi either, because she just terribly bad. You can just hear how she's talking. She's so scared because she really don't know what to do, to be honest with you. She's really scared. Because I'm going to tell you something, at this point right now, if anything that's off the record that's supposed to be what it is, it's a wrap. And to be real with you, I don't expect nothing to really come of this. Because this is the president. If you think for 1 second,
folks are rejecting.
If you think for 1 second that the commander-in-chief of the United States of America is about to look foolish, like a fool, or just look like the worst locked up situation in his life today, it's not happening. They are not going to allow Donald Trump to be looked at in that eye of some Epstein files. It's not happening, fam. They're not going to allow him to go down in this fashion. So this big distraction is an amazing distraction because they are really getting some things done behind the scenes right now. If you think about it, every time they say Epstein files, the whole world and I tune in. And the biggest thing about Pam Bondi or things that's being said now, they done got to a point to where they are literally telling the entire army, do not take orders from Donald Trump. Congress people are not scared to literally tell the entire army, don't take what? Moving forward said that's dangerous. That is the biggest dangerous thing you could ever have done with your life. And you heard with that man, that's punishable by H-A-N-G. That's crazy, fam. So we gotta count our egg. We gotta count up the wins, because I'm telling you something. If you think Trump finna lose in this one, you got another thing coming. Because again, he ain't finna go down in this fashion, this type of way about this. Others will be affected by it and go down, but he, as the president of the United States, finna go down like that. Unless this turns into something like a movie, which it is, But it turned into one of them movies where somebody just come in at the last minute and just tell it all, and that's it. That's when you see him fall. But other than that, he not finna fall right here in front of the American people's face. He not finna do it like that at all. So I'm just saying, you got to be ready, because I don't want everybody to be amped about the files and you not gonna see his name. Like, get ready to not see his name. Get ready to not see certain people. Get ready to see certain people that you didn't think, and then get ready to see the same people you thought was in there is in there. And the way Trump acting like he gonna take all day to sign that thing, that man can get that thing signed whenever he want. And about him already signing it, I heard. Now there's other things that have to go into process and in play. So this is a big deal, family. This is something that we will continue to stay with, because at the end of the day, we're here to inform, understand, and be aware that if it walk like her, talk like her, we know what it is in the duck activity. As always, fam, this is a different level, different time. You already know it. It's 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. You're going to catch your boy Dilla T and my fam here at No Filters to make sure that we inform, understand, and be aware that we read in between the headlines and make sure that we definitely see what's real and what's fake. We bringing light to darkness. We waking haters up. And we truly want to make sure that we become members and double tap that screen. As always, family, I truly appreciate each and every one of y'all pulling in and pulling up. Making sure that you coming in at 9 p.m. ready to get you something to eat, something to drink, and something to smoke if that's what you do. Because you know, Monday through Friday, you're here with my fam and your boy Dilla T. And this is No Filters. Good night, family. Be safe. God bless.